So throughout the Snare Saturday series, I've showcased a few different metal snare drums, but unfortunately only have showcased one copper. That is a Ludwig 6.5x14 pewter Copperphonic limited edition snare. So it just made sense for this Snare Saturday video to show you a Copperphonic. That way you can hear exactly what a copper snare drum is supposed to sound like. What's going on, everybody? Nick Costa here, and in this video I will be showing you a Ludwig 5x14 LC660 Copperphonic snare drum. This will allow you to hear the sound of a copper snare drum. That way you can compare it to other different metal snares. Now before we dive into this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification. That way you're notified of any additional content that I upload to the channel. So let's talk about the tonal spectrum of metal snare drums for a second. If we are to go from the brightest to the darkest in characteristics, on the brighter side you have steel and aluminum, then you have brass, bronze, and finally copper. So steel and aluminum are going to give you really bright overtones, and brass is going to give you a little bit more warmth and sustain. Now, in my opinion, bronze is a little bit of a darker characteristic than brass, but I also think that copper is even darker than that. It's also funny because if you are to just look at the shells and not have them have a specific finish on them, the alloys go from a brighter to a darker color as well. Now, being that Ludwig has been making timpani for years, it just makes sense that they make a copper snare drum. That is where the Copperphonic comes into play. And copper drums, like the Copperphonic snare drum, are going to give you darker overtones, and they're also pretty loud. All right, folks, so the Ludwig 6.5x14 chrome over brass snare drum giveaway at shop.nickcostamusic.com is officially over. Cue the Robert Downey Jr. meme of him rolling his eyes with the caption, "Thank God." But seriously, thank you to everybody who participated in this giveaway. And one of you is about to get a phone call from me letting you know that you won. But first, a third-party mutual sweepstakes company has to take all of the entries, randomly select a winner, and verify said winner. Once they do that, they will give me the information, and then I will be calling one of you to let you know that you won the drum, along with the new heads from Remo, additional snare wires from Pure Sound, and the black Ludwig snare drum case. So once again, thanks to all of you who participated in the very first giveaway at shop.nickcostamusic.com. Make sure you are following me on Instagram at PracticallyNick, so that way you know when to be nearby your phone, because you might be getting a phone call from me letting you know that you won. So let's talk about the specs of this LC660 snare drum. It is a 5x14 1.2mm seamless shell, and it comes with 2.3mm triple flange hoops on the top and the bottom, 10 double-sided imperial lugs, as well as Ludwig's P88 AC and P35P butt plate. Now, this drum in particular came from the factory with Ludwig branded Remo heads, and it's safe to say that that top head is an ambassador coated head, bottom is an ambassador snare side. And just like every other Ludwig snare drum, this comes with the set of their generic snare wires. So a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, they put rubber gaskets behind all of the lugs. Now, some folks say you should remove them to open up the shell a little bit, but I don't want to modify this drum. That way you can hear exactly how it's supposed to sound coming from the factory. Also, since it is a modern drum, it does not have an internal dampener. And I'm pretty sure the only snare drum from Ludwig that comes with one is the reissue of the Jazz Festival. So with this Snare Saturday video, I'm going to play this drum through a few different tunings. That way you can hear exactly what it sounds like to determine if this is a drum that would fit your needs. So enough of me talking, let's dive into playing. Now, one thing I noticed right out the gate, this drum surprisingly had a really long sustain in the lower tunings. I was always under the impression that copper was more direct, but in those lower tunings, that sustain really did ring out for a little bit. It was pretty similar to brass, but in my opinion, sounded a little bit lower in pitch. And that lower overtone that I was hearing, you continue to hear it as you work your way up to a higher tuning. It just sounds like the sustain gets a little bit shorter with each time I adjusted the tuning. Another thing, this drum is pretty loud. But although this drum is loud and really wakes up when you hit it hard, you can still play it at a softer volume and it still sounds great. And me personally, if I needed a drum that was loud but darker in tone compared to maybe an aluminum drum, this is what I would go for. But either way, I would love to get your feedback and what you thought of this drum, so make sure that you leave it in the comment section below, letting me know. Now, if you have any questions on this drum in particular, or maybe other metal snare drums, maybe even the gear that I am playing, feel free to leave that in the comment section below as well, and I'll try my best to answer them. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see some earlier videos from the Snare Saturday series, I put a link to the playlist in the description below. I'll also have it pop up right here to make it a bit easier for you. This might also help you hear the differences between this drum and some other metal snare drums that I have showcased in earlier videos. Now, if you wanted to see this drum be compared to another drum within the same video, leave that in the comment section as well. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up. That way it makes it a little bit easier for others to find it. And that is it. Thank you so much for checking out this video on the Ludwig 5X14 Copperphonic LC660 snare drum. And until next time, see you later.